I'm going to capture this. I want to show you. I want to show you how you work with hair and fur in this program. It has fairly good features for both, and in the history of 3D, they are related. For a long time, you couldn't do either of them, and so you had movies like Toy Story and Finding Nemo, which have no hair or fur in them. Anybody know the first movie that had fur? Yes. Think about it. It's a Pixar film. Which one? Ice Age is a good guess, but was a little bit later than this movie, I believe. Pixar film, early Pixar film. That's correct. Monsters, Inc. is the first one, right? Yeah. And it only has one character who has fur, right? Right? See, there's a reason for that, because it's very difficult to do. It's difficult to do because everything that you've seen us doing so far, we're dealing with points in space and defining geometry, and hair is lots and lots and lots of different points in space. And that's actually why the rendering on it gets very difficult. So you know, and we'll look a little bit at this, the difference between fur and hair is that hair moves and is longer and is stylable, whereas fur is generally a surface over the top of everything. So like a teddy bear would have fur. G.I. Joe, that old figure, used to have fur, truthfully, rather than hair and a beard, because it was all one even texture. Whereas something like Gandalf would have hair, where you actually have to style it. I'm going to use a really simple example. I'm going to start with a primitive. We'll use a sphere, and actually I'll make it a tessellated ball, and I'll show you why momentarily. Ooh, I should give that a higher level, Control Z. A tessellated ball is going to be made out of triangles and multiple points. And one of the reasons this is important, as we'll see, is that the hair has to come out of a polygonal selection. And so the more well-defined that selection can be, generally the better looking the hair is going to be. You'll see I'm at a scale of 100 millimeters here. This is about a meter across, I believe. Yes. And what I'm going to do to put hair on it is I'm going to go to polygons, and I'm going to select some polygonal selection. I'll say that's not bad. And I'm going to give it a tag for a material. I hit the M key, we get a default material. I'll call this top head, like that. Then, if I go to the render window, there's at least two parts to doing hair, and we're going to look at the second part first. Most of what we do with hair and fur occurs inside the shader, which is what dictates how it's going to look and the color of it and the size of it and the direction of it and everything. When we get to hair that we style, there's another part where we actually have to model it with guides, which we'll talk about. But we're going to start with hair that has no guides, hair that we wouldn't necessarily style, hair we would just stick on something and then call that done. If I look in our directories up here, I'm in the render window over here, obviously. I'm on top head, and I have a bunch of things here: animal fur, feathers, grass, hair guides, range, hair no guides, miscellaneous. These are all types of fur or hair. I want to go up again. If I look at the materials directory, I have one folder called fur, and in that I have other folders for hair and grass and all that other stuff. So even grass is considered a type of fur, because it's going to do the same things. It's a matter of a shader saying, create me a lot of geometry that's going all in one direction. I'm going to pick hair no guides, and you'll see it gives me some pre-made basic hair. You know what? I won't pick that right away. I'm going to go into miscellaneous, and we'll pick fun fur. I'm going to click it and drag it and drop it, and it asks me if I want to auto size, and I do, and it does that. Now if I look closely at that, you'll see what this is. It's a bunch of tubes that taper off of all sorts of different colors going in all sorts of different directions. I have to look into the shader for how I modify this. This is the shader here, Fun Fur. I'm going to open it, and you'll see it has a gradient, a fur material, and then a material over here, properties. Let's go to properties. Good. Let's start with the way it lays in, the way it actually attaches and the geometry that's made of it right here. We said before over here that we're at 100 millimeters on our grid, and this is about 1 meter across, so about that. If I go over here, this is the spacing of this, we'll call it fur, 4 millimeters. If I lower this number, I get more hair. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to hit 2, and this will be 2 millimeters. Oh no, 2 meters, that's wrong. 2 millimeters. And this should take a little bit longer to render now, because this is going to quadruple the amount of hair. See that? I'm going to put this to a higher value right now because it's easier to set with a higher value. If I put in 8 millimeters, we'll have very thick hairs, very thick. But I can see things figure themselves out quicker. So if I back up to here, the length of this is 80 millimeters. Let's make it 200 millimeters. There should be much longer hair. Good. See that? We'll make it a meter, why not? That would be very long, very wild hair. I actually sort of like that. I'm going to keep that like that. Let's look at some other things about it. Tapering, I believe, is how thick it is, and width is the space in the head it's using. And what I mean by that is if I go down here, the width of the hairs is down here at 100%. Let's say we put it to 10%. And you see it's taking up much less. It's a much sparser hair. I'm going to put it at 90%. So it's filling most of everything. This is very important, actually. When they were first, there's a whole history of hair in Hollywood, and there's actually a guy named Joe Alter, and he makes millions of dollars a year because he wrote the first patents on hair, and everybody else has to pay him for hair, and yada, yada, yada. And the reason I bring this up is that making hair out of geometry is difficult because it has to figure out all of the shapes of these things, but tubes look a little bit better than what they used to use, which are called strips. And actually, you see how this says cylinders here, and those are cylindrical? Strips, oftentimes in the distance, looks better. Like if I'm back here, in my opinion, strips oftentimes reads a lot better than tubes will. But people tend to leave it on tubes, and tubes are harder to render. Truthfully, with strips, I should be able to get a better spacing. Let's try 2 millimeters. And it should be faster because there's less geometry involved making the strips than making the tubes. Although hopefully, there we go. This is a funny thing about this hair. Your render times will go to hell, but if you set the values high enough, you get stuff that very convincingly looks like hair. Although, again, this is multicolored rainbow wig hair, but still. You could sell this, is what I'm saying. Like, especially in a still shot, that could pass for actually hair with the shadows and what have you going on. Let's look at a couple more settings on here. GL display is kind of interesting and will come up more later. When we're painting hair, it's funny, why is it not giving me a GL? It should be showing me strips of it there, but I'll worry about that later when we come more to it. We have to wait for this to re-render. And I might set this spacing value back down so that this renders more quickly. We'll set our spacing to 6 millimeters, which should be fairly wide strips. Good. I like that. Fur kink is an interesting one. This is how much it's all going in different directions. Position jitter, direction jitter. Just for kicks, let's reduce these to 0. And you'll see you get much more direct, just hair sticking out. See that? Bend direction. Let's say we don't have it bend at all. That's straight up and down, right? Let's say we have it bend 90%. That's pretty far over. Kink, frizz, you can play with these. You'll get different results. Frizz, let's see what happens when we turn on frizz. Whoa. Okay, you can have a lot of fun with this. By the way, you can also animate any of this. So I can change any of that any way I want. I'm going to leave it like that, and let's look at the colors a little bit. I have a gradient here for the diffuse color. So it's telling me it's diffuse color there, and these are the colors it is using, each of these swatches. So let's say I want more red in it. I'll take this swatch, and I can click here, and we'll put some more red that way in it. Good. And is there anywhere else I should put red? We'll move this over a little bit, which will change the mix of them. Good. I like that. This is where we were before. And this is basically just the way it fits in. So this is a pretty basic rundown of how I would take some polygons, tag them, and then drop some fur onto them and play within the shader to make stuff happen. Let's say I wanted to give this a beard of fur. I'm going to go back over here, and I'll take a strip of polygons. We'll give them sideburns, why not? There and there. Those two pieces will become sideburns. I'm going to hit the M key to give them a name, sideburns. Then I head back over here, and let's pick something more traditional. We'll go hair no guides, and we'll give him black sideburns. Yes. And you should have them on both sides of his head. Which way can I see this better? Like that. Yes. And we should have all the same settings here too. If I go into sideburns, you'll see we have a material here. Well, that's funny. We just have on the black material, actually I should go here, hair black. That's the one we're using. Here's the shader. This is the hair. And this is going to be the color. Let's say I wanted it to be grayer. We'll go this way. And like that. And I can move that around. I also can change the thickness of it. Again, this has a very thick spacing. I'm going to put this over to strips as well, which I prefer. Good. The spacing is 6 millimeters. We'll make the spacing 10 millimeters just to see what it looks like. And we'll make the length shorter. They're 164 millimeters long. We'll make them 50 millimeters long. Okay. So that's tighter fur-looking stuff. And actually, that renders fairly quickly. And if I go over here, fur kink, I can change the direction of it and move it around to all that other stuff. Now, that's about as far as you can get with fur. If you want stuff you're actually going to you're going to style, we need to use guides to control it, and we have to paint those on. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to make myself a new scene. New scene file, new. Okay, and I'll put in a new primitive to work on. We'll go with the sphere again. Should we go with the sphere? You know what? We'll go with a cube. And I'm going to give it a bunch of segments. I'll show you why. 10, 10, and 10. Good. Okay. I'm going to put hair on top of this that I actually want to comb. I want to put a part in it, we'll say. So let's go to polygons again. And I'm going to pick the polygons on the top here. which I probably should have thought out a little more when I was doing this so I don't have to paint over all of them, but it shouldn't take that long. Okay, I'm going to name that M. We're going to call that top head. Then I'm going to go to paint. In paint, I have a bunch of hair tools. These are designed to allow me to style hair with the paint brushes. If I'm in here, I have something else called guides. If I go to create guides from that selection, generate number of segments 50, number of guides max 100, length 297, that should be fine. If I click on this now, it should do that, yes. These are curves that I can move around and paint that will work with the hair. I will show you what I mean. I have them all here, and you actually select them in polygon mode. I can change some things about them, which way they bend, and actually I'm good with that view direction. Detect collisions is important. So if I have detect collisions on, when I comb them, they won't go through the cube. They will go around the cube or any other object I have here. And the number of segments is how many pieces they're made out of. This way, I'll leave that all where it is. Let me select them now. And you'll see I should be able to, I hit escape, right mouse click, select them, good. And you'll see they all have a little circle at the bottom that shows where their root is. Now, I'm going to comb them. I take this and I get a paintbrush. And you see how they're flowing over the top of the surface? They should be. And they should not be going through it because I have, in the earlier setting, I had detect collision so that it won't drag through. Back here, collide with base surface is what I wanted. Let me recomb those. I'll push them back up like that. What we'll try to do is we'll try to give them a part, or her as the case may be. And I can zoom in here and do more fine work. I also can change my brush size with the up and down mouse key, or I could just change it here. 400 pixels. That's better. Good. So now we have a fairly sharp part here. Now let's go over to render, and I'm going to go up. And I have something called hair guides range. These are styles designed to work with guides. That's important. I'm on top head. We'll drag black hair frizzy up there. Yes. Darn, I didn't get it right. I have to select the polys. I'm going to go here for a second. See, because I have the guide selected and not the polygonal selection. I'm going to, on my top head, right mouse click and select the polys. And then I'm going to go back here and drag this onto that. There it is. And you actually see how I'm parted now? See that? Now, I can go back here and I can fine tune this. I can use any of these different tools. Let's go to curl. Oh, and I have to select my hairs again. If I go into polygon mode here, I will start selecting the hairs I want to curl. We're missing a couple here. Your normal selection tools will work on this. We'll say those ones. Now let's go to curl. Let's see what we have here. Ooh, I like that. That's sort of interesting. Let's go back and see how it looks in the render. I also can fine-tune all the other stuff. This is when I'm talking about the two parts. That stuff I do to the guides will affect the way the shader looks, and stuff I do with the shader will will influence what I should do with the guides. So I have to think of it as two parts together. Let's go into its shader a little bit. And actually, let me make sure which one it is. It's this one, which means I can ditch this one, which is good. And we'll go in here and we'll give it a different color first of all. Hair frizzy, it's my width. Here's my color. Well, let's see what we got. Give them red hair, why not? You know what? Why not green? Actually, green becomes grass, so we'll go with blue, like that. I like that. And we can do anything else we want to do with it too. We can do gradients and things. We'll talk about that later. Let's deal with our the thickness and what am I looking for here? Whether they're made out of strips or whether they're made out of tubes. Let me find it here. It's not there. It's here. This is my spacing, 12 millimeters. This is the length. Let's make the length much longer. We're going to make it 6 meters. And I bet that won't affect it because it's taking its rolls from the guides. Use the guides. So if I change the length of the guides, I would actually change what's going on here. And I'm certain there's a place I can change the length of the guides. Guides, for guides. Guide range, guide length. Let's make the guide length 200%. And let me see if that affects the render. Well, I'd have to go back and check it. I don't think that it did. Let me go back here. Guide range. Yeah, I like range. We'll try putting in 500 millimeters. I may mess something up here too. That happens. I can go backwards if need be. Let's go back to the render here. I might have to modify those, the length of them somewhere else, but either way, I can play around with it pretty clearly. Let's see what kink is doing here. Bend direction down, bend amplitude. Does this affect us? That affects us a lot, actually. You wouldn't even know it had the part in there at that point. And anyway, I can play with kink scale and such like that, although it strikes me the thing that I really wanted to change was the cylinders. I want to turn it back to strips, which I prefer in light of this. And actually, max segments is how many pieces each one can be made up with. And that's not so bad. If you go back in here, you'll find a number of other tools to play around with. I could even add detail to this if I need it by adding more guides. If I go to create guides here, there's a tool interpolate. If I do it, it should put stuff in between my hair. Plus, I should be able to sketch, which lets me just draw on new pieces of hair if I want to model them in particular. Like, let's try to add some really long ones and see what happens. Oh. And again, they'll each represent many pieces of hair, I think. Let's go back over here and see what happens. You see over here, we should have more stuff sticking out. Let's head back here and check our paint view there. There's some other things going on here. Things we can do with the guides. Maybe even this is where I can change the strength of them, but I will leave you to play with it. The big things you have to remember are you take a bunch of polygons, you give them a material tag. You then go over to the renderer and you pick one of the furs or grasses or feathers or anything that has a lot of objects growing out of it, and you put it on there to start playing around with the material. If you want to actually model it, you go into the paint thing first with that polygon selection, and you create guides on it and then start using these tools to move them around. Okay? Okay, good. I'll leave you to that.